Now this they do not have in Hebrew. I looked for it. I don't know why they don't have it in Hebrew. I'm sure it must be in Hebrew somewhere. It has to be. I just did not succeed in finding it. Okay, we're learning now about the death of Miriam, the death of Aaron. And when Miriam passed away, that the water stopped pouring from the rock. We learned about that yesterday in the Chumash. And when Aaron passed away, the clouds of glory, the protective clouds that protected them, also left. And Moshe brought it all back. But in the merit of Moshe fell the manna. The Rebbe says we can find these three aspects: the water, the clouds, protective clouds, and the manna we can find in the Torah. There's the manna aspect of the Torah. That's how we understand the Torah. And that's different for each person. Just like the manna, for the tzaddikim, it fell near their house, and for the bad people, it fell far away, and for the intermediate people, it fell right outside of it, etc. And it could taste like whatever you wanted it to. So that's, Moshe was the aspect of Torah of understanding. Manna. What is the aspect of the Torah that corresponds to the clouds of glory that were there by the merit of Aaron? Said the Rebbe, the clouds of glory, they protected all the Jews equally. They surrounded the Jews and protected them equally. Says the Rebbe, that's the aspect of the Torah which is I want to call it the holiness of the Torah. The letters of the Torah. The letters of the Torah, that's the holiness of the Torah. Because when God gave the Torah, he gave letters, and these letters are God's letters. They're not just letters that Moses heard or whatever. These are actually God's letters, the exact letters that God gave. The letters of the Torah, that's the holiness of the Torah. And it says that every Jew has a letter in the Torah. That's the holiness of the Torah. And that holiness of the Torah protects all of the Jews equally. That's like the clouds of glory. Surrounds everyone equally. That's Aaron's contribution to Judaism. So in one way, we have the highest and the lowest. Moshe, he was the highest. That's the Torah understanding. Big tzaddikim. Aaron was for everybody equally. Tzaddikim, Rashaim, everyone equal. And also the same thing in Judaism. Not everyone sits and learns Torah. Not everyone's able to learn Torah. But every Jew is willing to give his life for Hashem. It might not be that he realizes it, but it's there. That, by the way, is why we say in our prayers, Shabbat and Yom Tov, it says, "V'yenuchu bo kol Yisrael mekadshe shemecha." They will rest in it, the Jewish people, mekadshe shemecha. That all the Jews sanctify God's name. It says that that's the essence of a Jew, that he's willing to die rather than to go against Hashem. That's the essence of what a Jew is. The whole Tanya is based on that. That's the short way. That's the long way and the short way of the Torah. Derech Katsara. So that's the aspect of Aaron, the self-sacrifice. That every Jew does. And Moshe, that's only the highest Jews, how they can understand it. Some people can understand less. Every Jew has a part in the Torah, the understanding of the Torah, but some more, some less. But the letters of the Torah, every Jew is equal. And Miriam, she's like the water, like the blood, whatever, that circulates it all around inside. That's the aspect of the Torah that circulates Mesirut Nefesh, self-sacrifice, with understanding, and understanding into self-sacrifice, and makes them all one. Good. Now, let's see, where are we? Where are we? Huh? Oh, yeah, you got the wrong page. Here we go. Okay, so the Rebbe says now we're in Vav, so maybe I'll say it in English, huh? I'll say it in English because there's no text on the screen anyway, so we can't read along with me. And this is in Hebrew, so there is, even if you do find the text, it's going to be in Yiddish. So let me just say this in English. And I think you can also find this printed, translated in the books. It's already translated, but we'll learn this anyway. Kach Yuvan Akesher. Okay, now we can understand the connection between the manna and Moshe, the clouds of glory to Aaron, and the well of water to Miriam. Moshe, he was the shepherd of the Jewish people. He fed them. What does a shepherd do? He brings the sheep to, to grazing land. Mir'eh, it's called. His job is to feed the Jewish people. Like it said that before Moshe was the leader of the Jewish people, God saw that he was an excellent shepherd, that he would take the big sheep to hard ground and he would take the small sheep to soft ground, even though it was a lot of trouble for him, but he would do it. So he knew how to provide Torah for each and every Jew, just like he knew how to provide grasses for the sheep. That was his nature, Moshe. Therefore, the manna, that the whole thing of the manna is going into people's inside, came from Moshe. What is Aaron? It says in Pirkei Avot, which we're going to learn today, by the way, 3 o'clock. Aaron, it said that his main thing was love. He loved everyone. He loved even those people that the only good thing you can say about them is that God created them. Briot. There's some people that you can say only God would create a person like that, a thing like that. Who would want to create it? Only God would create someone like that. Aaron loved him. It says, Ohev et Briot. Lochi, and therefore it says about Aaron, Vayivko al Aaron Shloshim Yom. Therefore it says that Aaron, they wept for him 30 days. Why? It doesn't say that about anybody else because Aaron really loved everyone and he drew them to Torah and the commandments. That's true love. Even though that the people themselves were far away from Torah and the commandments, they wanted nothing to do with it. But Aaron showed such great love and genuine love that they thought, well, if this is what Torah and the commandments does to a person, that he really appreciates me, is I want to do Torah and mitzvahs also. That was Aaron. But therefore, the clouds of glory were in the merit of Aaron. Because why? It was what we call measure for measure. Because Aaron loved all of the Jews without any exception. And it says at the Briot, it must mean that he loved everybody, but he was only in contact with Jews. He drew down these clouds of glory, which also surrounded all the Jews. So that's why the clouds of glory that surrounded everybody are connected to Aaron, who also embraced everyone. Miriam, it says by Miriam that she was Pua. Pua was the one that she devoted herself to bringing up the children. Even though the Paro had this prophecy that there was going to be a male child, they didn't even know if it was a Jew or not. It says that it was going to be a male child that was going to stand up and dethrone him. So he had all of the children, all the male children, thrown into the sea. Amram, we learned this yesterday. Amram, the father of Moshe, stood up and made an order: no more children. Don't have relations with your wives. We can't take the psychological trauma, and it doesn't do any good anyway because all the sons, you give birth to them and then they all get killed. So we're not getting anything out of it. The better they shouldn't get born. And Miriam stood up and said to Amram, her father, she said, you're worse than Paro. Paro is only killing the males. You're killing everybody. And he said, you're right, and you should go back and give birth. And it ended up that Moshe, not only did he live, but he was brought up by Paro. If so, that's the idea of water, because the whole thing of water is to bring life even to the lowest places. Miriam, that's the idea of that she brought children into the world. Zeke Levan Veo, that's the generation that all the children, these children, that when they came to Yam Suf, they all praised God. This was the generation that received the Torah. And therefore, from her came this well of water, because water is to bring Torah to the lowest places, even to these little children. That's the idea of Torah. When Aaron died, the clouds went away. When Miriam died, the well went away. And everything came back in the merit of Moshe. From here we can understand that Moshe, he began a new type of a service. Up to Moshe bringing it back, the Jewish people depended on Miriam for the water, namely to recognize godliness in the Torah, at Aaron for self-sacrifice, and when they passed away, as Moshe, he took over their jobs as well. Limaroche, and this is a brand new type of a service of Hashem. Limarod, even though his main thing of Moshe was to be a shepherd of the Jewish people, to teach them Torah. That's the thing of Moshe, Torah Tivalano Moshe, Moshe Kibul Torah Misinai. Moshe was the thing of the Torah, but nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu took over these other jobs. This is the true sign of a shepherd of the Jewish people, that he does not only do what he is capable of, what is his nature to do, but when it is necessary, if there's no other choice, he has to take on whatever is necessary to do. When it's necessary to bring a Jewish child closer to Torah v'mitzvot, even if he's the greatest of greatest teachers, he sees a Jewish child that's being neglected, as a Jewish shepherd of the Jewish people puts everything aside, and he teaches this child, even personally if he has to, Aleph base. Whether we're talking about the Aleph base of Torah and mitzvot, or simply the Aleph base of the Jewish alphabet. Even though, let's say, a person is a Kohen, and you can say, what is a Kohen doing in base of Kavoros? What's a Kohen doing and defiling himself? What do you mean defiling himself? It says that a person that's evil, that's gone away from Torah, he's called dead. And I am a Kohen, I know Torah. Why should I defile myself with this person? Like the Rebbe has the Sicha about why is the wise son put next to the evil son on the night of Passover. It says, even though that I happen to be a great wise man, and a wise man, it says, if something is lost, he doesn't have to pick it up, right? That's a genius in Torah. He's walking on the street, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein is walking on the street, and he sees somebody drop their wallet. He doesn't have to pick it up and give it to him. He can run and tell him to give it, but he would pick it up and give it to him. It's not his job. His thing is to teach and to direct children, to direct the Jewish people. Although he doesn't have to deal with people that are sinners. He's a great rabbi. Nevertheless, it says when Aaron and Miriam passed away, as Moshe Rabbeinu had no choice, he had to somehow or other bring back the clouds of glory and the water also to save the Jewish people. That's a true Jewish leader. And that you can see with the Rebbe, very amazingly, how the Rebbe handed out dollars to people. He stood for hours, and he gave out dollars to people. Now the Rebbe had a tremendous mind, and he could learn very, very quickly. If you look at the Sichas of the Rebbe, the footnotes that he has in the bottom, and they said that the Rebbe would just finish it in minutes. He knew everything. And he knew all of the places for everything, every page in the Zohar and all these obscure books of Kabbalah and commentary on the Gemara and Acharonim and Rishon, just incredible. midrashim and explanations on midrashim. And the Rebbe would like stand for hours and hours giving out dollars to all sorts of people. And there, all sorts of, who knows, weird people, strange people will come by. And everybody got a blessing, and everybody felt that the Rebbe was there just for them. And there were non-Jews that came by. And everything. It's certainly not from the Rebbe's job. The Rebbe could have just given out a whole bunch of dollars like this and given a blessing on them or something on the dollars and said something else, Rabbi Groner, you hand them out. I haven't got time. And the Rebbe really didn't have time. But why did he do it? Because the Jewish people needed it. The Jewish people had to have an awareness that there is hope in the world. There is hope. There's a tzaddik. There's the Mashiach. There's hope. And people could come directly in contact. Ches. Ne'amar, it says in the Tanya that every Jew has a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu inside of him. And this is a teaching to everybody that what? That it is the job of every single Jew to be like Moshe. When the well of Miriam is gone, when the clouds of glory are not there, the Jewish people are lacking water, Torah, they're lacking protection, merit. And there's a danger, no, there's no clouds of glory, there's a danger of snakes and scorpions. So therefore, every Jew has to wake up this Moshe inside of him. And you have to provide the water, you have to provide the clouds. Say only good things about Jews. Take a Jew and teach him Torah, even a little bit, without to think about if this is my job or it's not my job. Also, this in itself, you shouldn't worry about the snakes and the scorpions and the serpents. Why? Because if you're awakening the aspect of Moshe inside of yourself, you're awakening the form of God which is inside of yourself. And it says a very interesting thing in the Tanya, it's Perek Chaf Daled. It says that the Daniel being thrown in the lion's den, and all the lions there were like, they had been starved for days. And he survived. It says not only survived, he sat there and he was singing songs, whatever, he's learning Torah. There were angels there with him. And then afterwards, the advisors, when he was pulled up, the advisors of the king said, maybe the lions aren't hungry. So the king said, let's make a scientific experiment. We'll throw you in. And he threw them in, and it said, not one of them, not even one of their bones touched the ground, that the lions were so hungry that they ate them up in the air. Look in the book of Daniel. They ate them up while they were still in the air. And Daniel sat in there, and he was, why? So it says it wasn't a miracle. That animals are afraid of human beings. The problem is to act like a human being. A human being is supposed to be one who only thinks and feels about his creator. I'm being created. I'm nothing on my own. I'm just being created all the time. And a Jew that thinks this, is that nothing can harm him. Like it says in the Gemara, Ein chaya roa shalatet ba'adam. It says that animals can't hurt, but people can. It says by Yosef that his brothers threw him into a pit full of scorpions and snakes. It says that and why? It says in the Torah, Laman atzilu miyadam. In order to save him, Yehuda came along and said, let's throw him into this pit and we'll save him. Right? We'll save him. What is it? Reuven said, let's throw him into this pit and we'll save him. Right? We'll save him. And it says that, why did Reuven say that? He said, in order to save Yosef from his brother's hands, because they wanted to kill him. So they said, that's a good idea. How do we save a person from being killed? You throw him in a pit of scorpions and snakes. Does that make sense? Doesn't make any sense. So it explains that if God wants to make a miracle, the snakes and scorpions will listen and they won't sting them, like the lions in the den. But Jews have free will. And it could be that God wants to make a miracle. And, the rope breaks, so they say, okay, let's burn them. And then the fire goes out, and they say, let's drown them. And then the water, whatever, evaporates, and they'll say, okay, let's shoot them. The Jews will find a way to do it because they have free will. But nevertheless, if you have the image of God on your face, in other words, you think, I'm doing what Moshe Rabbeinu wants, if you look like an animal, in other words, you're selfish and think about yourself, then you can have troubles. But if you do things only because this is what Moshe Rabbeinu would do, is then there won't be any problems. There won't be any problems from the snakes and the scorpions of the world. That maybe to the other people will have danger from this. And you might say, I don't see Aaron over here. I don't see Miriam. But what can you say? Listen, my friend, don't make all these calculations. The Jewish people are suffering. The Jewish people are, how do you say? Goses. The Jewish people are in life-threatening danger. The clouds are gone. The water is gone. You have to do the job of Moshe Rabbeinu. Put on yourself the image of God. Don't think about yourself. That the world could be that they're suffering from these snakes and scorpions that are driving all the Jews crazy and making them think that they're not Jewish. You can have all of these thoughts coming into your mind, but if you just forget about yourself. I once read a story about somebody, and we have another minute, and I'll tell you another story after this. It's a very interesting story, actually. Maybe this will be the story. There was a fellow, I forget what his name was, but he wrote a treatise. He always thought differently than everybody else. He was always sort of a loner. But either he was a big genius or he was just a strange person. Anyway, he was in university. He wrote a whole treatise about something. And it was something to do with engineering or power or something, electrical power. Anyway, so he wrote this treatise and he presented it to his professor. And the professor looked at it. He said, just stand there, wait for a second, looked at it. And he said, this is garbage. And he threw it into the garbage. So he went out and he thought, no, this is it. I don't have any friends. I don't have any success. This is how my mind works. I don't want to be like everybody else. There's no reason for me to remain in this world. And he just got so more depressed. He went to this bridge and he was going to jump into the water. He got up on the edge and he said to himself, one second, I've got a good idea. Why, instead of committing suicide, maybe I'll just commit egocide. I'll kill my ego. In other words, I'll treat it as though I jumped off the bridge. That's it, I'm dead. And now I'll look at the world in a new way. I don't care what people think about me. If I was dead, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care if I get along with people. If I was dead, I also wouldn't care. So that's what he did. He went back, he developed a whole new sort of idea about life, and he didn't care one way or the other. And he would go and listen to lectures and things like that. I figured maybe eventually something good. One day he went into heard a lecture by a professor, and the professor was saying his paper. And he went to the professor, a different professor. And he went to him afterwards and he said, tell me, where did you get that from? He said, I'll tell you the truth. I found it in a garbage can. I found it in the garbage can. I couldn't believe it. I opened it up and I really liked the ideas. You know, maybe I changed a little bit something, but I don't know who wrote it. It doesn't even have a name on it. No, nothing whatsoever. It's in a garbage can, right? And it just said, there was a big F on there or whatever it is, failed. And I read it. This man, that's my treatise. I wrote that. So, well, you're a genius. You hugged him, and that's it. He started a whole new thing. So what does it show? It shows that if you have all sorts of doubts about what the Rebbe said, and doubts about if I can really improve the world, and doubts if I can really be like Avram Avinu, is take those doubts and throw them in a garbage can. There was a story about Rabbi Groner, the brother, Rabbi Groner of Olav Shalom, his brother Olav Shalom, that he became the chief rabbi of, the rabbi of Chabad, at least over in Australia. I don't really know what happened in Australia, the hierarchy. And he was by the Rebbe before he went to Australia, or when he was going back to Australia to assume the position of being the rabbi. And he came into I don't know if it was before, it must have been before he got married. So he went into Yechidus by the Rebbe. And in those days, there was no flights. You had to go take a flight a little bit, and then you would go take a train, and then you would take a ship. And the whole thing took, days. So the Rebbe said, what are you going to do on the trip back? It's a long trip. So he said, I don't know. So the Rebbe said, well, I'll tell you what to do. The Rebbe said, you should think about what's going to happen, make all your plans. And then just before you get to Australia, you should take all of the worries that you've got and all of your doubts and all of your negative thoughts and bundle them all together and throw them into the sea and forget about the whole thing and just go and do your job. Just do your job. And that's what it says, because when a person gives up on himself, he forgets about himself, and he doesn't try to think, is this really what I should be doing or not? And he just decides that I am going to try to make Jews closer to their Father in heaven, even if it's one Jew. Then Hashem will also make him closer and his whole family, and he will give them everything that they need. And the main thing is to make Asilim Mikdash, to make me a holy temple, a mitzvah which is on the tzibur. The congregation has to make the holy temple. The third temple is going to come from heaven. But we're building the holy temple by means of the work and suffering and prayers and efforts we've been doing for the last 2,000 years. We've been building the temple. Men, women. Then will be a shachanti betocham. Then God says, I will dwell among you inside of each and every Jew. Okay, is that good enough for the story? Or you want another story?